All right, now let's get analysis. We're now joined via Zoom by political analyst, Dr. Oscar van Heerden. Dr. van Heerden, well, as you've heard, they're from the ANC spokesperson, the second leg of the 9th ANC North West provincial conference currently underway. But we know, of course, it was delayed due to late arrival of delegates and registration processes, which has been proceeding very slowly. Are we likely to see this conference getting underway drama-free, despite what the leadership is saying?
A good day, Onati. I'm not sure that it will be drama-free, but I do think it will get underway. I think that in as much as the spokesperson, Pule Mabe, is indicating that people have the right to seek legal opinion, to seek legal recourse, I do think that the ANC nationally is going to have to consider this matter of lawfare. The courts are going to have to consider this matter of lawfare. I think the courts feel, and rightfully so, that it's unfair to continuously bring political issues into the courtroom and having to then put the court under pressure to make these decisions. So I think that there's need for a discussion, both in the ANC about what do we do with members that continuously decide to seek recourse into the courts, delaying processes and so forth. As you know, Nati, already a decision was taken by the High Court to dismiss this particular issue, and now members feel that some members feel they still want to go to the Constitutional Court. So it's a worry matter.
And just speaking about that, I mean, as you were listening to Pule Mabe calling it democracy in action, but what can we make, of these constant litigations at almost every provincial, conference to date? I mean, what does it say about the ANC's leadership or lack thereof, and also its processes fundamentally?
No, absolutely, Nati. The sad thing here is you have members. And the question has to be asked, who is paying these lawyers, these advocates? Who's paying for legal recourse when, in fact, the ANC is incapable of paying their own workers? Not only at their head office in Latuli House in Johannesburg, but also in the provinces. And yet there are members that spend lots of money fighting these legal battles. And so I think some introspection, in as much as Pule Mabe talks of democracy in action, but the truth is that I think the ANC will have to apply their minds as to what happens if there is continuous litigation with regards to disgruntled and or dissatisfied members.
Let's now talk about the Northwest province. I mean, in that press briefing, again, Pule Mabe is saying that this is one of, the biggest, where the ANC enjoys, the biggest majority. But it hasn't had an adequate leadership for the past 4 years, in fact, So, what can we then make of this province finding some form of stability, particularly as you head to the elective conference in December?
Well, this is exactly the point. Northwest province have become a microcosm of the kind of infighting, factionalism that is taking place and playing out in the ANC broadly. The truth of the matter is that there's no need for justifications. When you look at some of the arguments, credentials were adopted by the Northwest Conference. It was already a contested space, but it went through. And that resulted in the top officials being elected in the manner in which they did. Now, the ANC will have to really dig deep to say, are we going to allow the continuous infighting, factionalism that now plays out in the courts to continue in terms of unity and renewal within the ANC? And I think that that's something that the National Conference will have to contend with.
And in fact, they are talking, post the elective conference in December about, taking this renewal and unity, narrative that they have, into probably full throttle. But the concern does come at branch level, at provincial level. I mean, just going back into just some of the problems that we are seeing now in terms of this particular conference. I mean, we have 40 delegates essentially questioning the credibility of this very conference, saying that there is vote rigging, bringing some forms of complaints that they claim are legitimate into the courts, but also on the sidelines, you have delegates, senior delegates, writing letters to the ANC leadership complaining about interference, about the very deployees from national level at provincial level. You know, one wonders then, should they not concentrate at provincial level if they are ever to see the renewal and unity of the party at national level?
Well, this is the crux of the issue, Nati. You know, that the truth is that there are internal processes in the ANC. There is an elaborate credentials process that is followed in terms of which branches are legitimate, who are in good standing, which members are paid up. All of this culminates at conference provincially into a situation where they then inspect those. There are supposed to be objective, independent NEC members that have been deployed to the province to actually cast an eye on that, make sure the processes are followed and so forth. And then conference collectively decides that we accept these credentials. Now, as soon as that happens, if there has not been vigorous objections, these allegations of vote rigging and so forth, if that has not been tested prior to the credentials being accepted, and the credentials indeed gets accepted, then conference must proceed, and then I think a decision must be taken that no further legal action can be sought if it has not been raised prior to the adoption of credentials. But that's something the ANC will have to discuss.
In fact, that issue of credentials also coming up as the party prepares for the elective conference in December. And Bulemabe just giving assurances there to the journalists that were attending that, they will start doing the work on the ground come September. Talk to us about what we are likely to see in the run-up to the December elective conference, especially as it speaks to the processes that we've seen, leading up to the courts in the various provinces.
Yeah, so I think one of the key interventions that the National Executive Committee made was to request the former President Kgalema Motlanthe to spearhead an electoral committee that in essence is going to be looking at not only who are eligible to be nominated and doing background checks, but I think it is an attempt to also ensure that the credentials, the credibility of the process leading up to conference is going to be smooth, is going to follow certain rules, is going to be within the confines of the Constitution. As to whether that is going to be enough to avoid a showdown and some lawfare as we go to Nasrec 2022, I'm not sure that is going to be the case.
And I'm sure you are not alone, Dr. van der HEERDEN. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Really do appreciate it. Of course, that was political analyst Dr. Oscar van HEERDEN.